Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into, well, a really powerful claim from the Quran, one that often gets, let's say, a surface level reading. Our guide for this exploration is the work of the renowned scholar Mulana Maududi, specifically his book Din-e-Haq, which, translates to the true religion. And it's interesting, his work starts with the traditional Islamic invocation, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, and then a prayer for really understanding the truth. So our goal, our mission today, is to unpack one short but incredibly significant verse from Surah Ali Imran. Indeed, the only religion in the sight of Allah is Islam. We want to get beyond just reciting it. What does it really assert? And why does Maududi argue it needs, well, much deeper thought than we usually give it? Okay, let's dive in. So this core claim, indeed, the only religion in the sight of Allah is Islam. That's our focus. Now, the common take on this, the sort of immediate understanding, well, it's usually pretty straightforward, isn't it? People generally think of Islam as, a specific religion started about 1,400 years ago in Arabia.
Right. Founded by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Exactly. And Maududi even points out that many Muslims, not just non-Muslims, actually use that term founder when talking about the prophet. And this standard view, it kind of leads to predictable reactions. If you're not Muslim, you might just hear it as, okay, another religion claiming it's the only one, like others do.
So you're seen as an exclusivity claim, yeah.
And if you are Muslim, you probably accept it as true, but maybe don't analyze it too deeply. Maybe use it sometimes to argue Islam is better than Christianity or Hinduism, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It seems simple on the surface.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating here, and this is central to Maududi's analysis, is that this verse is absolutely not meant for that kind of quick read. He argues quite strongly that it's a verse where a serious student has to pause, really reflect much more deeply than has typically been done.
Okay.
It implies there's a much bigger, richer meaning hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Something way beyond just comparing historical religions.
A richer meaning. Okay, so if that common interpretation isn't quite it, where do we start? What's the key to unlocking this deeper understanding? Is it a specific word?
Precisely. The absolute starting point, according to the source, is understanding the term edin.
Edin, okay.
Yeah. The Arabic word din itself has multiple layers. It can mean things like 1, dominance or authority.
Okay.
2, obedience, servitude. 3, reward and recompense, like judgment. And 4th, a way or path of life.
Right.
Now, in this specific verse, Maududi clarifies din is used in that 4th sense. It means a way of life or a system of thought and action that a person follows.
A way of life. Okay, that seems clear enough. You said adim.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really critical.
Okay.
The Quran uses edin with the definite article al. That al is crucial.
Fun belly in English.
Precisely. It changes a way of life into the way of life. It signals uniqueness, exclusivity.
Ah, okay. So it's not just saying Islam is one approved way among maybe others.
No, not at all.
It's claiming it's the only true and correct way of life in God's sight. That's a much stronger statement.
It is a fundamentally stronger statement. And Maududi stresses this term edin is meant in the broadest possible sense.
How broad?
We're not just talking spirituality here or, personal ethics.
Right.
It encompasses the entire structure of life, society, how things are run, the whole system.
Oh, okay.
And crucially, it's not tied to one group or time, not just for Arabs, not just for the 7th century. It's presented as being for all times, all people, all societies, universal.
So just to be clear then, when the Quran says ad-din here, it's not just
rituals.
Okay.
Not just theology or beliefs about heaven and hell.
Right. And not the modern Western idea of religion as this private thing you do on weekends.
Definitely not.
Right.
That separation of religion from public life, from the state, from social systems, that's completely alien to how ad-din is used here, according to Maududi.
Got it. And not limited to a specific people or era?
No. He directly addresses modern attempts to sort of water it down to say, deen is just about your personal relationship with God. Based on, decades of his own deep study of the Quran, he says, look, regardless of what people wish it meant today, the Quran uses ad-din to mean the entire system of thought and action for human life, full stop, for everyone, forever.
Okay, that's huge. If ad-din is the comprehensive universal way of life,
right,
then what is al-Islam? How does that fit in? Because again, most people connect that directly to the historical religion.
Right. Another critical term we need to unpack. In Arabic, the root word Islam means to surrender, to submit, to accept obedience, to give oneself over.
Surrender, submit.
And just like with deen, the Quran uses the definite form, al-Islam. That's making it specific.
The submission.
Kind of. The specific meaning here in the Quranic context is submitting yourself completely to God, accepting his commands, his guidance without holding back, surrendering your own sort of personal freedom if it goes against his will, placing yourself entirely under his authority.
Okay, so submitting to God's authority and commands, it's not, say, submitting to the laws of physics or...
No, not natural law.
Submitting to some idea of God you just sort of made up yourself.
Absolutely not. It's not about obeying a God born of imagination or personal experience alone. It's very specific.
So what is it submitting to then?
It is accepting the path of thought and action revealed by God through his messengers. That's the key part. The revealed guidance.
Revealed guidance.
Yes. It means consciously deciding to abandon your own, the source calls it intellectual and behavioral independence, or maybe more pointedly, intellectual and moral chaos.
Chaos.
And instead choosing obedience and submission to that specific divine guidance brought by the prophets.
Yes.
That is what the Quran calls al-Islam. Aligning your whole self with the divine plan.
Aligning with the divine plan. Okay. And this leads us to what feels like the real bombshell in Maudud's analysis, right? The part that challenges that common narrative we started with.
Absolutely. This is pivotal.
Al-Islam, as used here, is not presented as a new religion founded 1400 years ago by Prophet Muhammad.
Exactly. That's the core insight that changes the perspective entirely.
So what is it then, according to this view?
The argument is, from the very first day humans were on earth, God made it clear. He told them that this way, al-Islam, submitting to his revealed guidance, is the only correct way of life.
From day one.
From day one. And all the prophets, absolutely all of them, without exception, Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Noah, countless others we know and don't know.
Yeah.
They were all sent with this exact same pure message.
The same message.
Same core message of al-Islam. Submission to the one God through his revealed guidance that's presented as the universal, original religion of humanity.
Wow. That completely reframes, everything about how we usually think of religious history. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, all teaching al-Islam in this sense.
In this fundamental sense, yes.
Yeah.
That's the argument. They all called people to submit to God's will as revealed to them.
So then, how did we end up with distinct religions like Judaism and Christianity as we know them today, if they all started with al-Islam?
Well, Maudud's perspective, drawing from the Quran, is that these later systems, as they exist now, are seen as, the term used is mixed or hybrid systems.
Hybrid, meaning?
Maybe they formed later, developed by the followers of those prophets. The idea is that over time, human interpretations, cultural influences, maybe even deliberate changes or simple misunderstandings, they crept in.
Okay.
So these additions or subtractions led to deviations from the original pure al-Islam that the prophets themselves brought. It wasn't the prophets' fault, but what happened after them.
So they're seen as branches that diverged from that original trunk of al-Islam.
That's a good way to put it. That's the perspective presented.
Okay. Let's try and bring this all together then. We've unpacked ad-Din as the comprehensive universal way of life from God.
Right. The whole system.
And al-Islam as the specific act and state of submission to God through his revealed guidance brought by all prophets.
Yes, aligning with that divine path.
So putting those together, the verse, indeed, the only religion ad-Din in the sight of Allah is Islam al-Islam. It takes on a totally different meaning, doesn't it?
It becomes unequivocally clear, yes. The claim is, the only correct, divinely sanctioned way of life for all of humanity, for all time, is this path of submitting completely to God and following the guidance he revealed through all of his messengers.
It's not about joining a specific historical group founded 1400 years ago, but about adopting this timeless principle of submission to divine revelation.
Exactly. It's a statement about the nature of truth and the required human response to it across all ages.
So, okay, this is a lot to take in. What does this mean for you, listening right now? The source itself kind of anticipates this, right? It asks the big question, should this claim be accepted?
It does.
And interestingly, while the Quran obviously provides its own reasons and arguments, Maududi highlights that it also encourages your own independent thought, your own search and reflection.
Yes, it's an invitation.
An invitation to really examine it, to see if there's, and I'm quoting here, truly any other viable alternative to accepting it, It puts the onus on the individual seeker.
It does. It calls for intellectual engagement, not just blind acceptance or rejection based on the surface meaning.
Wow. Okay. So today we really have gone on a deep dive, haven't we, into the heart of this seemingly simple but actually incredibly profound Quranic claim. We've seen how Islam, in this deeper Quranic sense presented by Madudi, isn't positioned as just a religion founded in history,
Right.
but as the universal, all-encompassing way of life, ad-din, which requires complete surrender to God's revealed guidance, al-Islam.
A message that, according to this view, has been consistently delivered by every single prophet since the very beginning of humanity.
It definitely challenges our usual categories and timelines for religion.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
This expanded understanding really pushes us, doesn't it? To
Yeah.
look beyond those common, maybe narrow perceptions of what religion even means, and to consider it instead as this comprehensive system of thought and action, relevant for everyone, always. A total life system, not just a compartment.
A total life system,
Right.
tracing one consistent message back to the dawn of time. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. If al-Islam, in this fundamental sense, is presented as the original universal blueprint for human existence, what does that imply? What does it imply about how we understand religious history, about the very nature of truth, and maybe even about our own personal search for meaning and purpose in life?
Yeah, how does that change the questions we ask?
Exactly. We really encourage you to continue your own deep dive, maybe keep exploring these concepts, holding this broader, deeper understanding in mind. Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive.